So again, it's all about the backing tracks. Just having fun with it, and don't be afraid to mess up like I did. Whatever, right? Who cares? Eventually, your mess ups will become less and less the more you do it. It's really simple. And those of you that I guess know or follow me or whatever the word is these days, I think what you all understand is, I just try to show you a simpler approach to learning the guitar. Because when you strip away all the BS and the smoke and mirrors, you're really just left with a handful of chords and an instrument with wires on it, right? And it's up to you to figure out how to play your first few chords, a handful of open chords. It's going to take you some time. It's going to take you months. But you can start feeling good and hearing something coming in as little as just a couple of weeks. It depends what you put into it, and what you put into it, you generally get out of it. So after a few weeks, even something like, well, definitely something like this, right? Where you have to follow a structured time and go to a certain chord and, that type of thing, whatever that is, G, right? That can be overwhelming. So, keep it slow, keep it steady. Whatever it is you do, just do it right and build a good base, a good foundation from which to start. Okay? I'm just going to
all you do is click
get
the button
in here on a...
Boom, it's going to generate a chord progression. Let's listen to some of these.
Just going to get here and let the chord progression... I generally use a random backing track. I'm just going to pause it for now. I usually use a random backing track when I play. And the reason I do that is, well, for discomfort, so that I don't know what's coming and I can't prepare for it. So I'm forced to adapt. And once I started doing this, it's amazing how your ear or your sub, I used to laugh and roll my eyes when someone say, oh, I just play by ear or whatever. But in a sense, that's what you're doing. When you're listening to something and trying to figure out, you kind of already know that it's going to be somewhere around, oh, there it is, there's that magical note. Now I know, where I'm at here, so that's either the root note or it's the fifth of the root note, so I'm close. I'm going to figure this out. And give me a minute and I'll have all the chords as well, right? Because notes and chords are the same. So that's a place to be. Um, on your journey, that's an unrealistic place to be. At the beginning, because you don't need to know any of this stuff at the beginning. You don't need to know anything beyond getting your fingers around this chord. Say, I'm just using this as an example, but C. Okay, then you want to play a chord that goes with it. So you'd want to play or learn a chord that's within the same key. So in this case, just to make it easy, we'll just say D. So eventually we'll do G, D, and C, or C, D, G, in any order. So in this case, you're starting out and you learn C. And we learn D. Now, you know what? That's it for now. Your main goal is to learn how to get from one to the other smoothly and consistently. And that should be your only goal. But I see too many people, me included, twice, because remember, I played for a year and quit, and then 6 months later played for another year and quit, and did the same thing twice, made the same mistake, and then the third time is when the light bulb went off. So, and that's what I talk about. I took the simpler approach, the easy approach, the approach that I should have taken the first time. Okay, which was, keep it simple and see where it goes from there. Because the reality is, yes, you could be a better guitar player playing bar chords and power chords and triads and scales and all. Of course, you're going to be better or more versatile, right? But you don't need all that stuff. You can play anything with open chords. You throw in a capo, right? And you can play about anything. So, that's the thing I had to decide to myself. Like, what do I want to do here? Do I want to be one of these dudes that can go somewhere and impress someone because I can play all that this way? And then I'm thinking, well, I really don't care about that. I just, and that was difficult. All these bar chords were difficult on my hands, my wrists. So I just took my 3 open chords and played the hell out of them and developed my guitar foundation. And that's this, right? We're a juggler. That's what I compare this to, juggling. Same thing. Timing, control, weight of the object that you're juggling, how high you have to throw it before so you can get the other one around, and you have to build that perfect timing up. This is the same, right? You've got to build a synergy between left hand, right hand, ear, and brain, all working as a machine. Now, at first, it's going to be just these 2 right here. That's it. So without the basic motor skills of being able to move this hand into a position that makes a musical chord, and while strumming this is like patting your head and rubbing your belly times 50 in difficulty. And we all know what happens when we try to do that right away. And we eventually get it. It might take us 10 seconds, 2 minutes, but we finally figure out how to rub our, you know what I mean. And, well, guitar's the same. We have to use extreme motor skills to get the job done, to be able to do this at the same time, simultaneously, without thinking about it. Now, that's the key word right there, without thinking about it. So once I tell you this, you know everything about the secret of guitar. When you can do what you do or want to do without thinking about it, you're a guitar player. Thank you. You're welcome. I've solved it. That's it. Until you can play this instrument without thinking about it, it's all there. You're doing well. We are. I am. We're all. But the moment you don't have to think about anything is not only the moment that you're at this is it. This is your sweet spot. Stop. Enjoy it. Don't keep trying to learn more things too quick. Enjoy. If you only know 3 chords, learn how to play them flawlessly in different ways. Bring your right hand into the equation as soon as you can possibly start changing chords, because then you'll start developing a sense of rhythm. Okay, now that's the right hand is your drummer, your bass player, your percussionist, whatever you want it to be, has to come from the right hand, right? We can do little things like palm muting, right, and slapping, flat picking, and all this stuff. Absolutely, finger picking, you name it, Travis picking. You can do all that stuff, right? Thumb picking to get different sounds and stuff. It's different ways to play it. There's just unlimited ways to play. And you can do all that with just 3 chords and sound completely different. Throw in a capo, and now you can move and play those in any key. You can jump the key and play that same melodic progression. So there's a lot of things you can do by just building. Well, you need to build the guitar foundation. And once you do, that's the time, and only then, should you start bringing in techniques like bar chords, triads. Triads require extreme fretboard theory. Once you know your triads, piece of cake. Bar chords require they do require, but minimal compared, because when you lay out a bar chord, all you need to wonder is you need to know where that note is on this string or this string. That's it. When you're playing triads and trying to figure out the best triad to play in what position to match the tone of what's going on, you want to be in the same octave, or you may not. You need to know where to play that triad, and therefore you need to know where those 3 notes are. Once you've developed that shape of where those 3 notes are, then it's slidable, absolutely. But you need to find those. And those exist over multiple sets of strings everywhere on the fretboard. So it's not easy. It's not something you start out on. If you did, and you can, and you are, you're a hero. But that's just too much too quick, in my opinion. Right? But once you have a guitar foundation, remember, you're not a beginner no more. There's no more. Those days are over. Now you're a guitar player. Might only be 3 chords, maybe 3 chords and a B minor, or it might be 3 chords and an E minor. Now it's 4 chords, that kind of thing. Like you're just there. But you play them flawlessly with good rhythm. You are better than most people in the room. Okay, so it doesn't matter how you play those chords. It's how you play them the best and how they sound the best for you. That's who you're playing for. So, got to remember that, right? Nobody is going to be pleased. I could be the best cook in the world, but only a certain amount out of 10 people will thoroughly agree with me when they've eaten. There's always going to be 2 or 3 that aren't going to agree. Now, as you progress, you can decide where to go. But if you want to learn guitar, all right, the first thing you do is you turn off social media, pretty much. Don't fall victim to those slick videos of people showing you, look how easy this is. If you don't do this, you're not a real guitar player. Oh, yeah. Don't fall for that stuff, okay? Bar chords are fantastic. Bar chords will make you a more versatile, more rounded, better guitar player overall. Absolutely 100%. But the big thing is, and what they neglect to tell you, is you don't need them. Okay? Remember that. So they're hard to learn, and they're even harder to master, which is what we want to do, right? We want to polish our chord playing so smooth, right? Just like we see on TV and on these feeds. And the reality is, they're difficult. Now, some we're going to disagree because it worked good for them quick, right? And that I respect 100% because, again, we're all different. But for most of us, especially those of us that started late in our life, in our journey, those bar chords, after a while for me, like I can play them, but you know, after a while, it gets a little funky. So there's other ways to play bar chords, and then we get into that whole triad thing. All right. So what I would suggest to anybody, so we did a little bit for beginners and stuff. And again, just to recap, for beginners, please keep it simple. You've just got your first guitar, you've been playing around for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, and you're not sure what's going on. All right, let's back up, learn 2 chords from the same key. Okay, that's important. 2 chords. And there's a reason. That's because songs are written from chords in the same key. So if you want to play your favorite song, there's a very, very high probability that all of the chords, whether it's 3, 4, 6, however many chords are in there in that song, are all from the same key. All right, so if we assume that, we're safe. And if you learn 2 of those chords, that means you can play some musical things. You can go back and forth from one chord to another. If you know a C, and you can go to a D. Now you can create that. C to the D, to the C, 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 D, to the C. You see what I'm saying? It's just 2 chords. Now can you imagine if you added a 3rd chord, right? Right? 3 simple chords that we learn. This is a G, by the way, that we learn or can learn day 1. So now, if you just took those 3 chords, that has taken you probably a couple of months to sort of get to the point where you're starting to feel smooth, maybe sooner, might even probably be longer. Everybody's different. But when you get to that point, right, now you're playing songs. It's just a matter of how many G's you play in what space and how many D's, how many bars of G, whatever. And every song has its own little rhythm. You have a little strumming pattern, particular for certain songs. Now your chords are starting to expand into songs that we all know and love. 3 chords, G, C, and D. Or 3 chords, A, E, and D, or 3 chords, D, A, and G. These are chords all from the same key. That information is available everywhere if you want to know, if you're just starting out and you want to know the chords. But D, G, and C would be a group that would be very good to learn right off the bat. A, E, and D would be another triplet. Okay. D, A, and G would be another triplet. And then down the line, when you learn how to play an F, which we'll talk about here, then you could play C, F, G, and that is in the key of C. So now you got all the beginner's keys. We call them beginner's keys because there's a lot or more open chords. Therefore, we don't play bar chords. Bar chords are for sharps and flats. When we have straight open chords, we can, that's why beginners tend to learn everything in the key of G, because it has G, C, D in it, and eventually A minor and E minor, or the key of C, so it has C, F, G, A minor, E minor, and D minor. And you get where I'm going with that. And these are all of our open chords. So that's why, we're gravitated. But there's all kinds of keys. But in order to play as is through those keys, you're going to have to know your bar chords. Okay? Even starting with the key of E, right? So you have E, but then you go to F sharp, would be number 2. And then I believe it goes to G sharp is chord 3. So there's 2 bar chords right there. Then it would go to A, and you're already here, so you'd play the A as a bar chord, right? You see? So now you're pretty much playing all these, you're playing all the bar chords. And that's the reality. So that's why, as an open player, we tend not to play songs in the key of E. So we either transpose them via good old-fashioned transposing, meaning if you're playing the 1-4-5 chord in this key, then you just move it to another key and find out what the 1-4-5 chord is, right? Or you'd use a capo and just put your capo on 2. So if you were playing G, C, and D, and you put your capo on 2, right? You're still playing G, C, and D. You don't have to learn the new chords. But now you're playing A, D, E. Okay? So A, D, okay? Now remember that. So what did we say? A, E, D? No, we went A, D, E, didn't we? Ba, 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 ba. So it's the same thing, right? As we can play, but we don't have to learn those new chords. So now we can get by on those only 3 chords that we know. See, that's how you'd use a capo. Now this is, again, this is simplifying things down as far as fast tracking, getting you playing songs. And I know people that, and I was kind of one of them, that I knew people that played everywhere they went, parties, whatever, bars, open mics, they played the same, for them, maybe 5, 6 songs. For me, 3 songs that I polished really well. And anytime I went to like an open mic, I'd play the same songs, and they had the same chords in them. Maybe one had an E minor in it or something, but G, C, D, and then the other one had a G, C, D, E minor or something like that. Right? And I didn't know any of that. Like, I couldn't get up after, like when they have like the big join-in jam at the end, everybody does a song and takes a part. I just make myself scarce there, man. I wasn't going anywhere near that. I was hanging on for dear life, just trying to play chords and sing. I got by just fine. And as my chord library grew, so did my song set list or whatever, and it just grows from there. And I wasn't playing any bar chords, and I couldn't play lead or riffs, or I didn't know all my theory. I didn't know nothing, and I started writing songs. Now admittedly I've gone back and a couple of those early songs and I've tweaked things because I realized, boy, that shouldn't have gone to an E minor. It's just not right, and when I fixed it, it was, that's, whatever. Little things like that. Or I've made songs a little more dropped them a key or upped them a key, or I've made them a little bit more stuffed with chords. Instead of relying on 3 chords maybe to take me through something, I would add a 4th, or even a 5th, as in, like passing chords where they're just a couple of strums, a couple of beats and up, and get out of there to the next chord. And that's all from experience. And as my library grows and yours grows, you add to it. But man, when I took this approach, so I went from just a guy who, well, I could sit down and play some stuff, but I couldn't play with anybody else because I was always out of time, or they were out of time, or whatever it was. It was a disaster, so I could never play with anybody. Didn't know what things like keys were, so I couldn't figure out how I could play along by knowing what key they're playing in. I was a newbie. And I mean, look, when you do, or when you're in that position or situation, or whatever, like, there's always, just keep it simple. Like, keep yourself in the league. It doesn't matter if you know any of that stuff. It doesn't matter if you're whatever. Just do whatever you know, simplify it down into 3 chords. Okay? Forget the few bar chords you've kind of figured out, or a couple of, or a little riff or whatever. Forget it right now. Just strum those chords. Get the right hand. Start getting the right hand to be creative. Okay? Okay, remember, little things like it's a D. Yeah, great. And we go to an E, and then an A. I mean, there's really nothing musical about this, but we're playing the chords pretty good. We're, okay? So, again, I always say, where's the change going to come from? How is this going to, because you know what? I've been playing a while, and I still play my chords the same way. They just sound a little different now. Right? Okay. That wasn't a look at me moment. Okay. That was my very, very feeble attempt of trying to pretend or replicate someone who has just played a mind-blowing little riff for you. And you're supposed to go, wow. All right? That was what that was. And what I did it for was to show you my left hand did nothing different than it did day one when I learned those few chords. Okay? A lot of people don't notice that, but the left hand does the same. I was playing the exact same chords the way I learned them. Right? I think I might have played the A with a bar like that, but that is kind of how I learned it. I started playing thinking I had to be this way, but then as soon realized I should go back there later on for different reasons that I've talked about. So left hand did nothing different to make that what we just did. That was all right hand. Man, this is it. This is the band right here. So again, that's why you can take those little as 3 chords and make them into something by using a little creativity, which is, again, ultimately it's a 2-man band. I mean, lefty has to know what's going on too, but lefty is always just gonna make those chords the same as you learned them. Eventually, there's a couple things, like I play my G this way instead of this way. It's just easier for me, so I switched. Okay, I like it more and more comfortable. It's more comfortable on my wrist. It's just more comfortable. And more importantly, I have smaller, fingers per se, right? And I find when I played my G this way, okay, just get some sound here. So when I play my G this way, I found that this finger here was cheating to get over here, and I was muting out notes, and it just wasn't sounding clear. So I switched to here so I can get better clarity on all the strings. It's tough to fret that G. Bottoms of your fingers touch, right? So that's why a lot of people don't even bother with the B right here, right? They just mute it out with that bottom of this finger. You'll see a G played this way. You can technically just play a G. If you can play the bottoms, play those two. G and a G. Something like that. If you wanted to. You got your C there. Right? Into the F. See how little movement there is? There's little movement between the G, the C, and the F. Now think about this. If we play it the other way, I would have to go G, all the way back around to the C, up to that horrid bar chord, right? And then back to the G. You know what I mean? It's a lot of twisting and shouting going on there, right? And already my wrist is sore. right? So that's a little tricky for me. So if I play it this way, I can just go G, whatever order, right? G, F, C, G, C, G, C, C, F, right? I can just slide up and down. I can turn it into majors, like those major 7 ones. Like experiment a little bit. Drop a pinky. Here's the pinky drop. See where it goes. Put your fingers on 2 different notes. Strum. See what it sounds like. Oh, that's not bad. What was that? That's kind of like it's a half of an A minor. It's like an A minor 7 or something. Now put your ring down. See what the difference is, right? Follow? If you don't do that, you don't know. So, these are things. Once I started, learning a chord or learning a new chord, the first thing I did was try the chord with different fingers missing and see what I got. Like, what do I got here to work with? So, right? And if I take this shape, move it 1 up, now so in a way, that's kind of like you want to call it a half version of A minor, E, A minor, right? Those are 2 good chords that work well together, right? It's all right there. Or you can go A minor, E minor, right? You can go that way like that. There's actually, so as far as what chords to learn first or whatever, it really doesn't matter. It's really just a matter of, if you already know how to play an A, well, hey, if you want to look at it this way, you already got 1 chord. All you got to do is now learn 1 chord. And then you would learn either the D or the E, right? So you could do E, A, or you could do, A, D, that kind of thing. That's completely up to you, how you want to, but again, if you do A, then you need to either do D or E. That would really help. So yeah, that's, again, that's the roundup for the beginners. Start there and see where it leads. And you know what? If it leads nowhere other than playing 3 chords, man, you can sit down, be the life of the party. You could play hundreds of songs. Like if you go through the list, Google it, of G, C, and D songs, or AED songs, or DAG songs. There's a lot of songs on there that that you can play. So, so what was the other one that someone asked me about? Something about someone asked me about something. I can't remember what it was. It was something about playing, something about a scale or something. So if you're still there, please, I don't know how to find the things here. Hello, I don't know how old these messages are, but yeah, hi Barb, how are you? You make me want to give up. I don't know why. I guess, do you feel that it's very difficult? Because, I mean, it is, but it's very rewarding. And, once you attain a certain level, once you get that guitar foundation, like they can't take that away from you unless you were, idle for probably a year or 2. But, if you've put enough into it to get a good solid guitar foundation, left hand, right hand, ears, brain, you aren't going anywhere. Like, you're always going to have that. You're going to be able to play songs the rest of your life. You know, the only difference would be, you know, how good does it going to sound, and due to the fact that you're a little out of touch with the guitar, or how hard it is going to be physically for you to play it. You know, fingertips and all that, you lose all that, I guess. But for the most part, you know, you have that. You're there. You got the foundation. And when you get that foundation, then you can start learning other things, you know, bar chords and power chords and all that kind of stuff. Because you will need some theory, and you will need some advanced technique. And that's, you know, that's the reality. So, someone was asking earlier about something. I can't recall what it was, but we were talking about playing along. We're gonna throw a backing track on here. Let's see if we can get something going here. So, someone was saying about moving around, you know, how to move around. And again, there's two ways. If you're going to play a set scale, then you move around by changing the positions of the scale. So now all of a sudden the shapes that you learned, that initial, say, A minor pentatonic, that, you know, 5/8, 5/7 thing, it's different when you move to another position. So that's why it becomes important that you know the notes. Because again, any scale, what it does, whether how many notes there are, but in penta there's only 5, and it forces you, the shape forces you to play one of the 5 notes in any order you want. That's the idea of a scale. And then that shape is the same shape you use in another key, right? So here we're in A minor. So of course the A minor, just gotta kind of find a sweet spot. But as you know, with a scale, I could play any, might not sound great, but it ain't gonna sound terrible if I stay within the scale. All right, now your question is, how do I get out of here, right? Okay. Again, if you know your position shapes, just invoke the second position. So that would be, if it was A minor, that would be right here. There's the beginning of my second position. So now I can go over here. Now it helps if you know your notes, right? Because where do I go next? Well, I know A is a good note. But you gotta know, like, what notes you're playing, or you hit a bad note. So for example, here, there's my A, right? Here's my little kind of C, D, E run. You can hear it. Kind of works, right? Any way we want to try to bend that into a melody or whatever. Okay, now I can go into this second position in the highest part and play. There's my C, D, G, A, E. Right? It's right there. But now I'm in still A minor pentatonic, playing the same 5 notes, but now I'm playing them in the high register of the second position. And now we can move into the third position by scooting along. That's how it works. But no matter where we go, including in the open position, so here's my E, G, C, A, right, open. Now I got these right here. G, A. Slide to the D. Now I'm back in my first position. D, G, A. Right? Now we're going to take a ride to this position. play the BB box or the pentatonic house or whatever you want to call it. Now slide back over. Now, of course, you can slide from any of these notes back, but you got to go all the way back, right? Got to know, you got to know the notes. So if you're not sure if it's a 3 or, like a 4 fret one or only a 3 fret one, it helps if you really know your notes, right? Then you know, oh yeah, I got to slide out that extra one on this string. So that's why you don't have to really, if you know your notes, you don't have to memorize your shapes. Because if you're here in the C, right, and you know your fretboard, right, then you know that this is going to be E, F, G. So you know these are 2 notes right here that you can use, but you can't use these 2. So if you're coming out of here, so here, right, you know that you can't use this note, right? See the stretch? So just by knowing your notes, if that makes any sense to you. Anyways, so that's how you move around any scale. So that's how you move around any scale. Any scale has its different patterns, and of course it has its different notes in it. And if you know those notes, that's what it's all about, knowing your scales, right? If you know the notes, you'll never have to worry because you'll never get lost. Sometimes you stop on a C because it's a safe note, and you just pluck the C while you gather your thoughts. Okay, where am I on my fretboard? Because I get lost. I start out in one key, and next thing I know, I'm playing off, a different note. So in other words, I'm changing the key maybe, So, I think everybody has done or does that at some point or another, But I mean, as far as, again, when to learn things like this, again, what I recommend is you build those open chords, you build that guitar foundation, you're playing songs very well, right? You might even know a B minor bar chord. And you might be already playing walk-ups and walk-downs. You might already be doing that, okay? You're comfortable, you're confident, you sound good, you're there, okay? Now, yeah, go for it. You're not a beginner anymore, right? So there's no more of this painful learning curve. The learning curve is a lot less curvy. It's shorter because you got the skills, you got the foundation needed to continue on. So now all of a sudden, now you're introduced, well, maybe not introduced, but now it's time to polish your bar chords. Now for me, because now this guitar really needs a setup, so it's going to be a little bit difficult. But for me, because I struggled for 6 months, I dedicated on one of my first attempt to learn guitar. I had, even though it wasn't good, it was sloppy, I had a foundation of bar chords. So I kind of knew about keeping the elbow in, and I kind of, I would sort of jiggle my fretboard. Sometimes playing up like that was a little better. And I always had trouble converting to this A shape, playing it with one finger. That was always a hit and miss, right? So, but I did it, and I played bar chord songs and stuff, and then my wrist and the back of my hand started to get really sore if I played more than a couple of songs in mostly bar chords, because what I found out were a lot of songs, man. You could see it's begging, it's right there. I mean, you play D, A, B minor, G, right? Let's just take this as an example of what I mean, right? D, A, B minor, you got to play a bar. But now we can go bar, right? So now what was the first chord was A, wasn't it? What were we playing? Oh, sorry, D. So we go D, and then it was A, B minor, B minor to the G. It's all right there. It all makes as much sense. In fact, it makes better sense than playing open chords. Like you'll notice that there's a lot of B minors and F sharp minors in the same chord progression. You know, there's a lot of B flats and C's. Oops, sorry, see? C and B flats. I use 2 fingers for these. Oh, see, I'm terrible with bar chords like that. Certain bar chords right in this position. I can't play the B. Have a real hard time with the B, but I can play a B minor. So it's something to do with the fingering, but I fixed that by learning a triad, and I use that, and I'll explain it in a minute. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, yeah, good question. You can start with any note. The reason I always recommend and sort of push the root note is because, first of all, you'll never go wrong, okay? And when you're starting out, it's best to sound as good as possible, as fast as possible to give you like motivation. So I always suggest strongly, and more often than not, you'll find things originate from the root note. But no, you're right. So now you've heard me talk about the numbered notes that you refer to, so of the shape. So for example, if you're in G, G is the 1 note, A is the 2 note, right? And if you're playing the major scale, which is what the numbering comes from, then your 3 is here, that's your B, and your 4 is here. Now your 4 is always under the 1 in any key anywhere on the fretboard. Wherever your 1 is, the 4 is underneath. So now I know that that's my root 1. My 4 is right here. It's a C. So I got G, 1, C, 4. 2 frets up is my 5. So now I got 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5 in the chord of G. Now 1, 4, 5 chords in the key of G are the exact same. 1, 4, 5. G, C, D. The notes in the G chord, G, C, D, are the same. Now often, the 2 note will always sound good. If the one, whatever the root note is, you can go up safely 2 frets right there. So now, often you would use that 2 to make it symmetrical. Add a note into the mix so you have some versatility for a little more of a melody. And it's a little easier to play, right, than having to drop right away. I don't know. So anyways, you got a 4-note box. 1, 2, 4, 5. Now, listen to this. I can, off the 5, I can start my own little, and it all will sound good with this. Because the 1 and the 5, so I can stop on the 5 instead of the root. I can start a little lick from the 5, because the 1 and the 5 sound good together. And there's your power chord. The 1 and the 5. Otherwise known, this would be known as I think a G5 power chord, right? The 1st and the 5th, right? So yeah, good question. You can, and you can start off the 4th because they have a relationship. And I'm sure you probably know this, that your guitar is tuned in 4ths. So what's this? Open E, right? So the next string is going to be E, F, G, A. What's that? A. The next string is going to be A, B, C, D. There it is. D, E, F, G. Okay, this is where it goes bonky. The B string is tuned differently, okay? And that's why when we talk about the scale runs, like the shapes, why there's certain shapes that go, you know, this way, like an L. So the octave is always 2 over and 2 strings down. So there's G, you go over 2 frets and you go down 2 strings and you have G. So G, A, C, D. If you start on this G, you've got G, A, C, D. So you get the same thing, right? Now, let's say we do that with C. So we go, and we go to the next C. There's my C octave. Oh, we want to play the next ones. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. That didn't sound right. That didn't sound right. It's supposed to sound like this. Right? And we're doing this. There's something wrong. Okay. Because the C, the note under it is always an F. But the C here, once you cross the border, which is an imaginary line that I made up between the bronze and the silver strings, I call it the border. Once you cross the border, the next note, so in other words, the fourth, so if you're here, the fourth is underneath. So this note, if I wanted to find the fourth of this note, it's not underneath. I got to move up 1 fret. And you only do it if you cross the border. If you're already in the south, which I am now my fourth is under my root. So if this was my root here, which happens to be an F, okay, then this would be the 1. There's my G, the 2. Now the 4 is always under, right? So in this case, this note would be my B flat. C. There's my 4-note box. 1, 2, 4, 5. Right? So the theory is something that, again, you don't need. But at some point, yeah. A fret up is, yes, that's right. That's right. And the notes are the same. So a C sharp is the same as a D flat. Generally, I think the rule of thumb is when you're going up, like when you're calling out chords to someone and you're going up, I think you use the sharp, right? Oh, play C sharp. So you're going to go from the, you're going to play an A, you're going to play a B, and you're going to go to C sharp, right? Okay, bud? That's the chord progression. But if you were going the other way and it was something like, G, D, C, you might say that you would call it D flat. You know what I mean? If you were going the other way down. So that's probably the difference. But it's the same note, right? But again, all that's fancy stuff. There's a time and a place for it. And it's not in the first, in my opinion, it's not, depending on how you do, it's not in the first year of your playing. I think you spend that if you just want to be a guy or a girl, that just a versatile song playing machine, you just worry about your open chords and develop a strong sense of rhythm expressed through your right hand. And man, you will be burning it up in no time. You'll be playing 60, 70 songs, whether you try to replicate or you make them your own or a bit of both. You'll be zinging just knowing a handful of open chords, but being able to play them flawlessly, right? Smooth and and you start invoking, your palm muting, and you just start building a sense of rhythm. You build like a touch, and a lot of times I also play. I like playing. I like playing with my fingers, like just. So I like finger. I don't even know how I play, to be honest with you. It's my own little kind of thing. I think I came up with. I don't know. I tried something called the Travis picking. I don't know. You had to have like this thumb did this string and that string, I think. So it was like. and then this finger did these two, or it just got confusing. And I think when I started doing it, I had lost half of this nail, and it was really painful for me to use that finger, so I was discouraged from doing it. But anyways, I came up, I just started doing this. I started playing with the side of my thumb. Right? And then I started adding the finger coming up. Right? In any chord. Adds a little something, something. And sometimes it's the G, sometimes it's the open B, sometimes it's the open G, sometimes it's the fretted B or fretted G even, right? So you got some versatility if you develop your pinky, right? Because you can use your pinky to go up and dab some notes. So your pinky you should have just a little callus on there. Maybe you electric people, you shredders, might have more of a callus on your pinky because maybe it's more in play. But I didn't develop my pinky early in my process, and in a way I'm still sort of working on it, but it's a lot better than it was. But you really should get your pinky involved as soon as you can, as early as possible when you're playing. So remember to keep it simple, even playing notes. Right? There's a lot of good stuff in a short distance, just in 4 notes. Like you can make little riffs, little melodies, little things going on with just 4 notes. It's pretty simple. And that's where the practice and the creativity and all that kind of stuff comes in. And that's the question mark. That's what separates the little from the big. Let's face it. I mean, we're all gonna eventually just sort of branch off into our wherever we are, and it'll be determined on what you put into it, what your practice routine is, how much time you put into it. Do you play every day? How long for every day? What are you doing when you're playing? All those things matter. And, I really, I think being creative is so important, but, I think at the first part of all practice sessions, you really have to just give yourself enough time, call it a warm-up, but go through the basics, the rituals, the tried and trues, make sure that, your strumming is there and you're fretting the chords smoothly. There's no dead strings, everything's sounding good, right? If you're learning a song, work on that for 5 or 10 minutes, play it through different ways, working on the arrangement or the tempo or whatever. Absolutely, right? If there's a new technique you're working on, maybe a new chord. For me, it was something like this. It was an E and then dropping, getting that sound. So you got your E and then things like that, just trying to develop that. I did that a lot with the C. Drop my pinky on the G there at that first string, right? Or drop it on the B and strum through it. It's kind of a different sort of a C going on there, right? Move it up here. We got that kind of classic 7 thing, I think. So, just from one finger, right? So I started doing this, And of course, you sacrifice volume. I mean, nobody can hear you. So this is a complete solo thing. If you want anyone to hear you, they better be pretty close. The room better be very quiet, and they better be dedicated listeners. So if you want to play this way in front of people and have them notice you, you're going to need to be plugged in. Because if not, you're going to end up with wicked blisters on the side of your thumbs from simply trying to bash volume out of your strings. Even though you know you shouldn't do this and you say you won't do it, you will do it. Okay? You'll pound into your strings, and if you don't tear yourself, you'll blister up real good. I've done it many times trying to increase the volume of my output because I couldn't compete with people using picks or, plugged in any capacity. So you have to be plugged in. But it's my go-to way. This is the way I play guitar. When I pick my guitar up every day, I play. That's kind of more, I don't know, I just like that kind of strumming. Right? Throw a capo on there and you can sort of brighten it up a little bit, Yeah, they do have picks with grips, absolutely. Yeah, they help, but overall it's a comfort thing, right? It's a confidence thing. Once you start feeling comfortable with your guitar, and everything is starting to feel. I mean, look, this thing is. I was just experimenting with. This is as hard as a rock. This is hard plastic. Okay, so look, I got to figure out how I'm going to make that sound efficient but not overwhelming. Because if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, it would sound like this, and it can be overwhelming. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to let that happen. See? So you got to compensate. You got to kind of adapt. And that doesn't come. That was one of the last, and I'm still working on it, but that's one of the last things that came for me was, the left-hand fluidity came pretty good because I worked hard at it. But the right hand, I mean, even though it's still a work in progress, was the last thing that I can say fell into place. Was just that ability to touch the strings, have complete control of my pick at all times. It doesn't slide around on me, and it's just that ability to kind of just grace those strings. So now I can, this is a hard pick, okay? All right? So now we can something a little more mild, right? Now you look at the difference, how softer that is. Now I'm giving it pretty good. But it's a nice, right? Like it's a nice sort of, and when I want, I can dig in. Yeah, so, that's a touch thing. And that just comes from doing it like every day, right? Hi, Jerry, how are you? Yeah, generally, Mr. Prime channel, I find generally as I personally became more comfortable and just more fluid with everything, like my strumming, my wrist, everything was just the touch over the strings, how I was playing in general. I just felt that subconsciously it just went away. It just stopped happening. Like my picks stopped moving. I can't say that I did something special or that did a special trick or anything. It just seemed to stop. And I swore by these cat's tongue picks. I know this is dark, you probably can't see, but it's got like a cat's rough and I that probably helped, you know. But now it really doesn't matter what pick I pick up. I have control of it, and that includes the tone, and the volume, and so the way I strike the strings. Right? All right. Well, anyways, look, I hope somebody got something out of this. If you don't know who I am, I have a channel here, and I'm a nobody, but I'm just somebody who taught myself to play guitar, and you know, figured out a way to do it pretty quick after 2 failed attempts. And if you think I can help you, then please hit the old subscribe thing or whatever. And I come on live quite often, and I'll have a regular schedule in the fall. We've got some pretty good things planned for the fall. And yeah, just we keep things simple here. It's beginners to intermediate. We talk all kinds of things. I look and show you simpler, easier ways to play things. We don't care about snobby guitar protocol here. We care about getting to use our instruments the way we want to use them, whether it's just to play a few chords while we write our own songs, or it's we want to play cover songs from head to toe perfectly, no problem. Whatever it is, you know, then you need to learn the skills, and only the skills that you need to do that, to get you going as quick as possible. So there's no sense wasting time learning all these fancy things. Um, you just won't be able to do it as a beginner. So that's my specialty, okay? And just helping people develop, practice routines and things to work on to improve what you're going to need down the road in your journey as well. And little by little, we explain theory. I try to keep it simple. I don't use a lot of musicians' terms. It's all basic, everyday stuff. I explain things. You can go through my library. There's well over 400 videos of all kinds of different stuff if you got absolutely nothing to do. But hey, anyways, that's the story. So remember, I wish I could tell you that there's this special code or link to press, or if you want to pay me a certain amount of money. I wish I could say or do that, but it doesn't exist. There's, you know, uh, just think of it that music are just chords on guitar. Your favorite songs are all broken down to chords on a guitar, or chords in general. So you use your guitar to learn those chords, and you're going to use these two hands to do it. You're going to build that up, and until you're to build that up, you're not going to sound very good or anything, but you keep going, and before you know it, you're going to start sounding, little things are going to start to sound good to you one day, and you go, wow, that sounded good when I did that. And it's just going to mushroom, and it's a heck of a lot of fun along the way, and especially as you start putting songs together and stuff. And you develop your own style. Don't worry about trying to sound like somebody else or anything like that. You sound the way you want to sound, the way you sound. Play the way you want to play. I play extremely different than a lot of people. But I don't really care. Like, that's the way I play. And again, keeping things simple, right? So that's who I am. And for the rest of you that know me, thank you for joining me. It seems like we had another pretty good turnout from what I've seen on the numbers there. I think they're going to add up pretty good. And that's always good, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are really frustrated, thinking, or being made to think that they have to really know all these fancy things. And I strongly disagree, because I'm someone that does it and has done it. And like, I just met with someone today. Like, we're thinking of starting out. We're going to jam together, and with hopes of we got a little sort of ragtag band there that we might put together. Like you just don't know. Like, and um, you know, what do you need for that? Well, you just need to be able to play chords. You need to be able to play songs. You need to be, you know, you make it what you want, right? For me, I wanted to write songs, in which I've done many of them, and I will continue. Um, and so I want to play my guitar mostly acoustic a certain way. I want it to sound a certain way based on what I want to accomplish. So my journey is going to be, my learning credentials are different than yours. I'm going to need to learn different things than you, or know different things than you, to him, to her. We're all different. So our journeys should be a little different. But at the beginning, the boot camp, we're all the same. We have to learn how to make chords and strum at the same time. Again, it's like patting your head and rubbing your belly on times 10. But once we can do that, now we can begin the process of putting those chords together, right? And then through our right hand, development of our right hand, we can start turning those into songs. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. And remember, just play your guitar. I'm trying to see that thing there. I don't know. I can't really see the chat. Can you by chance play Ed Sheeran's? I can't. I want to keep this video up, and it'll hit the copyright, because it's selected for monetize, and it'll trip the copyright. So I can't. That's why I don't play. And when I do, then I just leave. The video gets deleted after. So that's why I don't play. When I do that, I let people know that I'm going to play songs and everything, and I make it as like that type of a thing. And then I don't monetize it, and I don't, I just let it go, and nobody cares, But this is why I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I can play little snippets of things, like, I think it's so many seconds or whatever. And generally chord progressions are okay, but. All right, thanks, Barb. Happy playing. I hope everything is going well on that end. Still waiting to see a sample of your work now, okay? Bye for now.